Chapter 3, Taxes in Your Financial Plan. There's 4 objectives for this chapter. We're going to identify the major types of tax. We're going to calculate taxable income and amount owed for federal income tax. We're going to prepare a federal income tax and then also select appropriate tax strategies. Tax planning should be an ongoing process. The overall goal for tax planning is paying your fair share, but still taking advantage of tax benefits. There are many types of taxes. There's purchase taxes, property taxes, wealth, and earnings taxes. Please grab a copy of your personal tax return while working through this chapter. When you're reading this chapter, it will really help you kind of make those connections. First, we determine adjusted gross income using taxable income, exclusions, tax-exempt income, and tax-deferred income. Then we make these adjustments to income. Next, you compute taxable income using the standard deduction or itemized deductions if they equal more than the standard deduction. If you choose itemized deductions, these are what can be used as itemized deductions. Here's a flow chart of these steps that we're talking about. And here are the tax records to be used. Be sure every year to hold on to this information as it comes to you. So exemptions. After deductions, you deduct exemptions. And then step 3, you use the tax table rates to calculate the tax owed. And here are the 2017 IRS tax brackets. The 2020 will be a little bit different, but not much. You can also calculate your own average tax rate by taking the full amount of tax due and dividing that by the taxable income. And here is an IRS example for you to look at. And then also there is an alternative minimum tax, and this just makes sure people pay their fair share of taxes. There's tax credits that are subtracted from taxes owed. The earned income credit is probably the most popular one, but there's also a child and dependent care taxes, and then of course the education credits to offset college education expenses. And then next, you must make your tax payment. You can make that through your withholding throughout the year, or you can pay estimated quarterly payments, or you can write a check or have it automatically taken out of your account. And then lastly, there's of course deadlines and penalties. The deadlines normally in a typical year are April 15th. However, 2019 taxes, the deadline was moved until July 15th. You must identify when you're filing a federal income tax return, you must identify your filing status categories. Whether you're single, married, filing jointly, filing separately, head of household, or qualifying widow or widower with a dependent. And then which tax form should you use? You'll select which form to use. About 60% of Americans use the 1040 form. That's the form that I use. However, if you don't have any dependents or you have a much smaller income, you may choose to use the 1040A or the 1040EZ. And here are the sections of the 1040. There's the filing status and exemptions, income, adjustments to income, tax computation, tax credits, other taxes, then payments or refunds, and then your signature, which is the most common filing error. You must have a signature. How do I file my state tax return? Michigan has state taxes. However, tribal members do not pay state income taxes on their per cap payments. And then how do I file my taxes online? Anyone can file their taxes online. Sometimes there's a cost involved, like between $15 and $40. However, if you have one of the easy forms or the 1040A form, then there's usually not a cost at all. And here is the online filing process detailed for you. Okay, there's tax preparation software that you can use. So there's H&R Block at Home, TurboTax, there's TaxSlayer, there's all different kinds of software you can use. Where really the software just asks you a lot of questions that you answer, and then they put the form together for you, and then they can file it directly from the software. There's also IRS services out there. You can call, you can use a document that shows you how to file. There's a DVD, there's an app, all different ways that you can get help. There's also tax publications, and of course there's the internet that you would want to use a reliable website in order to find that information. And then there's tax preparation services. I'm sure most of you have heard of H&R Block. There's that Liberty Tax Service. There's also CPA tax accountants. That's who I use to file my taxes. It's usually about $150 a year. However, we have some complicated tax returns because we lease out some of our property to the farmers and different things. So we choose to use a tax accountant. It's well worth the money. It costs about, like I said, about $150. Evaluating tax services. So there are some factors to consider when choosing a tax service. I would highly suggest asking friends and family for recommendations instead of depending on advertisements or flyers that you get in the mail and different things. I would just suggest asking friends and family who they use and trust. So tax service warnings. Ultimately, you are responsible for providing complete and accurate information. So be sure to look over everything before anybody files for you. And then beware of tax preparers that offer refunds in advance. H&R Block does this, and I feel like they take advantage of people that need money now, because those refund anticipation loans can charge interest rates in excess of 300%. And normally if you file online through a service or on your own or through an accountant, you usually get your taxes in about 2 weeks anyway, without those exorbitant charges. What if your return is audited? A tax audit is a detailed examination of your tax return by the IRS. Just always keep your records. 7 to 10 years is suggested in case you're audited. There's 3 types of audits. There's correspondence audits, office audits, and field audits. Back to that slide real quick. Whoops, maybe not. Only 1% of Americans get audited every year. And then the preceding slide showed your audit rights. Now, there's a big difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance is a legal tax planning strategy, and tax evasion is an illegal tax planning strategy. And we'll drill down on this in your quiz this week. Tax planning strategies minimizes taxes owed, and here are some examples of that. You must decide between the deduction or between an education deduction or an education tax credit. You can't do both. So sometimes when you're buying a residence or working with debt consolidation or job related expenses, healthcare expenses, you just want to take all of those considerations in before making these decisions based on your taxes. So there's tax exempt investments and tax deferred investments. There's also capital gains, self-employment, children's investments. All of these investments can the decisions may be made based on taxes, but you want to be sure you know everything there is to know about these before making these decisions. Retirement and education plans. So retirement plans, there's a traditional IRA, and that's when you have money taken out of your check to go into a retirement account. It may be a 401k, 403b, or traditional one before taxes. So you don't pay taxes on that income until you get the money after you retire. Or there's a Roth IRA, and that's one where you don't put money into a retirement account until after your taxes are taken out. So again, these decisions are made on what tax strategy makes the most sense for you. And here are some more examples of those kinds of investments. There's some recent tax changes that are listed here. However, every year there's some that are listed. My accountant sends me a list of these every year to keep track of. So I'm not going to go over these really with you because every year these changes will be different. And then there's some proposed tax changes, flat tax or value added tax that are proposed every year. And that is all we're going to talk about in regards to taxes